before we get to the agenda or the program, I wish to welcome you to this webinar, which is about how the maritime sector can create or reduce the unemployment in the country through its various sectors that it has. And also, I would like you to, of course, allow me to give Tanaka from Saimi to give us briefly the purpose of today's session, and also welcome us all formally before we get to the program of the day. Tanaka, the floor is yours. Can you please welcome us all on the platform?
Thank you very much, Malwande. And I just want to thank everyone on the platform, all the panelists that agreed to be part of this conversation.
Sorry, Tanaka. Sorry, just hold on. I'm not sure whether the audio on my side, there's any problems, but I can't hear you this side. I don't know what is wrong.
Colleagues, am I audible elsewhere?
You are audible. I'll actually ask that you contact Mawanda privately, as he doesn't seem to be getting my messages.
Okay, now I can hear. I can hear now.
Please check your messages on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
All right, apologies for that, colleagues. Just to welcome you all this beautiful Thursday morning. I'm not sure which part of the country you are, but hopefully it's warm and not cold and raining, but if it is, the better. Anyway, I just want to thank the panelists that agreed to be part of this conversation. We always strive to have meaningful conversation, particularly that have to do with things that are affecting us each and every day. And I think unemployment is a huge conundrum that we all face. And as opposed to talking about unemployment, we put the topic and the theme for today to look at employment, because we want to have a positive mind, positive thinking. How do we create opportunities and how do we create awareness to those opportunities? I think that is one of the main factor. How do we create spaces and create collaborations that enable people to be aware of the current opportunities within the maritime sector? When we look at unemployment or employment, often we look at it as a broad aspect in terms of cross-industry, cross-sectorial. But I think as people in the maritime space, it is critical that we have these conversations for the maritime sector. There have been different projections. Obviously, if you look at Operation Pakisa, that has hoped that maritime has the potential to open millions of jobs to South Africans. And the question is, we have a high unemployment rate. How do we create that employment and where is it? What are the avenues and who are the people we need to talk to give us, knowledge and ways of understanding how to navigate ourselves in the different sectors that we want to enter. So really, I think this conversation is really geared towards advocacy and creating awareness of employment opportunities in the sector. And with that, I really want to give a special welcome to our panelists who come from industry as well as our education and training service providers. Namely, we've got colleagues from Marine Crew Services that will be speaking to us from a youth perspective, or someone who's been trained under cadetship program. And we also have Nelson Mandela University, which is one of the institutions that teach the theoretical aspect of whether it's marine engineering or navigations around the cadetship. And we also have colleagues from UKZN. I am aware that UKZN has a number of maritime qualifications that they offer, from economics to engineering as well as law. So we are hoping that even our attendees can learn a thing or two, so that when you're preparing for a future next year for employment or for work integrated learning, this can be the platform that can actually give you a bit of guidance on where to go. And with that said, I really want to give a special welcome as well to our industry stakeholders. and critical players when it comes to advising and supporting our youth in the employment sector. We've got our colleagues from AMSON, the African Marine Solutions, and we've got colleagues from MLA, the Maritime Lawyers Association, and colleagues from TITA, as well as MERCITA. So with that, colleagues, I just want to welcome all our attendees and thank you for taking time to join us for this conversation. And with that, I will hand over back to our facilitator. Enjoy, relax, let the conversation flow, be honest, be real. And that's the only way we can get answers and help each other through this conundrum. So with that, Malwande, I'll hand over to you. And thank you very much, Malwande, for taking this task of facilitating this very important conversation. So thank you. Over to you, Malwande, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Tanaka, for your brief introduction and welcoming us to this session today. Now, let's get straight to our program without wasting any time. So we'll first have our guest speaker, who would be Nokolo Ngayo. She would be speaking on unemployment or employment in the maritime sector from a youth perspective. Nox, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Good morning to everybody, to our panelists, and to our host today, Saimi, and to our attendees. My name is Nokolo Ngayo. I am the director of Ocean Econ Consulting. Ocean Econ Consulting is one of the first Black-owned, female-owned consulting company in South Africa. So what I'll be doing is that, can I please just share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Hello? Can anybody?
It's not visible yet.
Not visible yet, Noxie.
If you try sharing your entire desktop, if you try and sharing your entire desktop instead of a window, it will help.
My desktop, okay.
It will be the first option.
Yes. Nothing yet?
No.
I know.
Okay. All right. You know what? Let me just carry on. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Unokolo Ngayo, as I have just said. Today I will be speaking about youth unemployment, and I'll just address a few issues. Okay, it seems to be sharing my screen. Okay.
Noxie, I think you should just proceed from your side.
Okay.
Yeah, even if you don't see the slide, I mean, we will hear you.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so today I'll be speaking about the ocean's economy, the blue economy, Operation Phakisa subsectors, the opportunities available for youth and challenges faced by youth in the industry. I'll close off by how can we change the status quo and a way forward, recommendation and policy change. Since the advent of democracy, the government has been at pains to address the triple challenges of inequality, poverty and unemployment by exploring different policies and economic strategies. The latest government intervention to this effect is the introduction of Operation Phakisa. Operation Phakisa was established at gearing at accelerating job creation by unlocking the potential of the ocean's economy. As well aware, the ocean's economy, maritime economy, has been identified as one of the potential opportunities to contribute to South Africa's economic recovery and growth, especially after the COVID. Operation Phakisa was launched by the former president the 8th of July 2014 as a key driver for job creation. It is projected that the ocean's economy would create 70,000 jobs and increase GDP contribution of the ocean industry by over 30 billion in the short term. In the long term, it was estimated that ocean's economy has a potential to contribute 177 billion to GDP. But my question is, where are we now? Yesterday, we heard the budget speech from our minister, and I must have missed something, but there was no clear mention of what is the investment to the ocean's economy. Is it a white elephant in economic development? Today, youth signify 2% of the world's 1.2 million seafarers. But however, we have so many seafarers sitting at home today. What could be the problem? Is there a mismatch in what is offered at schools? It is estimated that youth make up 6% of the global maritime workforce. Shore-based is still dominated by those ready for retirement and those coming back from retirement. Youth are reduced to admin and support role, and growth over the years since the inception of Operation Phakisa has been a 2% inclusion, but over on a period of 10 years, we've seen 1.8%. Over the years, we've observed the slow progress in attracting, retaining, and promoting youth in all areas of the ocean's economy, particularly in shipping and related activities. Despite the fact that the number of youth graduating from maritime-related programs has increased rapidly over the last few years. While explanations for this age gap vary, the key point is that the failure of the maritime industry to attract and retain youth and promote them into leadership roles represents a significant loss of opportunity. It is no question to say that maritime industry is still a man's world. There can be no doubt that this is historically male-dominated industry. Subsequently, there needs to be a concerned and intentional effort to help the industry move forward and support youth to achieve a representation that is keeping in line with the 21st century expectations. So what are the challenges? The empowerment of African youth in the maritime sector requires political will to put into place effective policies combined with intervention through education and training system. This was from the SIMIC 2017 conference. We are now 6 years later. What has been done? The biggest challenge is that school children and young women, school leavers, are unaware of the opportunities offered by the sector, both at sea and on land. This is a deficit can be addressed by organizations such as SAIMI and TITA by raising awareness of opportunities from school level and establishing programs which empower youth with necessary skills for entry into the maritime sector. And I applaud SAIMI for bringing together this conversation today. So many times we come together as industry and we talk about the opportunities for employment, opportunities that are there. But are we talking about what is currently happening in the maritime industry? Are we honest that we have seafarers and we have graduates, maritime graduates sitting at home without jobs? It's no conundrum that there's a big mismatch between skills and the supply needed. And well, the reason why I just want to focus on why I came here today and what I'm going to talk about is that the maritime industry has been seen as lucrative, and since we were students, we're told about all the opportunities that are in the maritime sector. There's so many jobs, and Operation Phakisa projects to supply these so many jobs. I, for one, I'm one of those scholars. Well, I studied at NMMU, did my postgrad diploma at NMMU, and I was fortunate through the assistance of Tita and Malcolm here to study at the World Maritime University. And when I came back, and I thought, okay, I'm in a better position to find a job. I'd be able, it's always been my dream to work in the port sector. I'm ready, and I applied for years. But what I saw is that, you know, we still have, like I said, we still have those still who are ready for retirement and those coming back from retirement, still occupying those jobs. And I sat with myself and I saw, what is the opportunity that I can actually present with all the ideas as a youth and everything that I've learned through my studies and being abroad? What contribution can I make in the maritime sector? And instead of sulking and waiting for government to open doors for me, I decided to open a business and transfer the skills that I have and see what I can do through and establish a company where I can do the work that I've always wanted to do. And this is why I encourage a lot of youth to actually start going on to consider the entrepreneurship role instead of waiting for business to supply opportunities. As we can see, that things have become stagnant over the years, and especially with COVID. But as a new business entrant, they've established a lot of red tape in establishing the business itself. And we've also found, and this is so yesterday I went and did a little of research on what the SMMEs in the sector. There's 2% of SMMEs working in the sector, in the different maritime aspects, so I don't want to say sector, that are competing against big business. They've expressed that there's a lot of red tape in establishing the business, and they've also found that there's a lot of gatekeepers within the industry itself, but that has not made them to continue going for the opportunities. And what we also find is that we have a lot of small businesses fronting for big business. So what supporting initiatives can be employed to ensure that we provide employment in the sector? There's a number of supporting programs, such as platforms to ensure a better coordination of activities related to the empowerment of youth, with emphasis on the need to mentor. We found a lot of programs, development initiatives that are just focused on just ticking the tick box of creating training programs that actually leave a lot of youth sitting at home at the end of the program. And this is what we need to do as industry. We need to have intentional training programs that are ensuring that we place youth and we provide them with the necessary support. We've got the International Maritime Organization Program for the integration of youth in the maritime sector. As I said, from WMU, we've met a lot of colleagues over the years from other countries, and they've really driven their youth development through this International Maritime Organization Program, which I'm not seeing a lot of in South Africa. And maybe this is an opportunity that we need to explore as a country. We've got TETA and programs and scholarships that probably Malcolm will touch on later on today. We've got programs from the South African Maritime Training Institutes. We've got SAMTRA, who is really working hard in establishing and providing youth opportunities. We've got Saimi, who is our host today with youth development initiatives. And we've seen programs in the past with boat building and also providing opportunities for small SMMEs, and we applaud them for that. And we also have, and which I really encourage, is for youth in the sector to find maritime professional networks such as SAMPA, which where we always have an ongoing debate around the sector, where you can stay in tune with what's happening in the sector, opportunities in the sector, and where you can really align yourself. So for those wanting to go into business, what are the opportunities? The maritime industry is diverse and presents several opportunities for youth. There's a number of low-hanging fruits right now, which is the boat building and ship repair. We have bunkering and with Nelson Mandela Bay, which is opportunities and for locals to ensure local beneficiation. There's an opportunity now for offshore suppliers, get a lot of youth working there, and logistics, which is something that is really looked down upon in the maritime sector, but it is what keeps us going as a maritime sector. So what are the projections of the oceans economy? I always believe that coming into the sector, you always need to keep yourself diverse with your skills, so that you can always stay in tune of what is what projections are in the industry and how you can best fit yourself. We can see major shifts in the skills demand. With the IMO ban and sulfuric content of above 0.5%, have a lot of seafarers now have an opportunity to actually diversify their training and their tickets. We've got sea tourism predicted to grow globally, with cruise ships becoming increasingly popular in the coming years. The KwaZulu-Natal has established its own cruise terminal. And there's an opportunity there for youth to actually organize themselves and take upon that an opportunity, because what we see currently is that we have people coming from abroad and working in our companies in South Africa. Well, the maritime industry is a global unit, but I think to ensure local beneficiation and also to cut youth unemployment, we need to ensure that our development is intentional. So if there's infrastructure development, we need to have our youth working there. If there's a new unit being established, we need to ensure that our government is also intentional to say that we want a certain percentage of our youth placed in these programs. We've got AI and autonomous technology will be predominant future in the next 5 years, with electrical ships, smart ports, and one sea. We've recently saw that in Nelson Mandela Bay, they've now working into combining the Port Elizabeth and Muga Port. How can we come together and look at the opportunity and how to create a one port and smart port, a city, and locals to play a role there? So what's the way forward? We need policy change for the inclusion of women and youth in the sector, which is intentional. And we need to ensure to close the gap divide and the gender divide. We need collaborations to avoid working in silos, because we don't have one ministry for the oceans economy. We have the transport sector working alone, tourism working alone, we have the SETAs working alone. How can we come together in a cluster approach? We have the business clusters, and I'm not going to touch on that and their work, but how can we ensure that the work that we're doing and the development that is happening in the sector is all aligned and is reaching the projections of Operation Phakisa? We need support from government and SETAs and funding institutions for development programs. I know recently I was approached by fishermen in the Alfonso district, which I had an opportunity of developing the Oceans Economy Master Plan for. Currently, what is happening is that the fishermen in that district is currently fishing through a launching site in Port Edward, which is KZN, and therefore their catchment is counted within KZN. And they have a little challenges into establishing that. And they were just saying, what we need to actually grow our fishing is just a small net, is a net. And I was saying, where is industry? I mean, these people were giving fishing licenses, but after that, what was the follow-up on that? Is anybody ensuring that after these locals and cooperatives were given these fishing licenses, are they actually operating? How can we as government ensure and assist them to ensure that they're actually operating? We also need to review the oceans economy procurement process. And as small SMMEs, we find ourselves always having to battle to actually motivate that we are capable as youth, and always having to motivate that we have the skill set. Our government has invested in us, and what we need is that our government and all the other industry players to actually give us an opportunity to play in the space. And I think we'll see a lot of growth, because the opportunity with youth is that they've got fresh ideas, they've got a fresh way of doing things. And I think we need to allow that inclusion of youth. In closing, I just want to say, as a youth player and an SMME in the maritime industry, it is how I got here has been through the networks that I've developed over the years. I was fortunate that I studied at NMMU, where they actually exposed youth into in industry. So every time there was a conference, we'd be invited to go into conference, and I would really encourage youth to always take up an opportunity to get into programs of development, even if it's not going to pay much at first, but always get your foot into an industry, get into social media, use social media for the right purposes. There's always information. And I think one of what we lack as youth is that we don't have access to information. Over the years, we've had Saimi and all these other institutions who are doing awareness programs, but it's not really reaching who it needs to reach. The information is there. And in closing, I just want to say, with all our partners, and I think this will be the conversation for today, our development needs to be very intentional. We cannot tick the boxes. We really need to come together to ensure that what we're saying and what we're doing actually will ensure economic activity, and especially after COVID. And to those sitting at home, I don't want you to be discouraged. Continue going for information and applying. There is opportunity. And I'm sure the next speaker, I did not want to touch on a lot. We have a lot of engagements and have a lot of youth who are seafarers who say they're sitting at home. Saimi has recently set out a tender to ensure how can we ensure seafarers can teach and can be lecturers. So I also want those sitting at home to actually see how they can best fit into the sector. Always stay in tune in what is happening in the sector. Maybe if you've got your tickets, maybe consider going into lecturing. And if it means that you need to go do a PGC at your local university, take that time, make that investment, and always stay in tune with what's in line with the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noxie, for that mouthful presentation. We hope that those who are listening, they've heard from you. At least you spoke from your experience with the industry. And I think that they've taken note of what you have said, and you've made a lot of emphasis on certain words for which I'll talk about them later. Colleagues, without wasting any time, we'll have to go to our second speaker now. That would be Nokwazi Mthethwa. But before we go there, just for you to note, as it is also indicated on the chat box, that all your questions, if you have them, you can just put them through on that chat box. Those who are able to answer will answer them. However, we will also have a session wherein we will entertain the questions. So we've got two sessions as part of our program where we'll entertain all the questions and answers. For now, let's move to you, Nokwazi. Just briefly, Unokwazi commenced with her on-board experiential training under the Marine Crew Services South Africa in 2008, and served on board a variety of vessels in the capacity as a deck navigator, which is a cadet. Throughout Ms. Mthethwa, period on board the various vessels. Okay, throughout the time, Nokwazi displayed good leadership qualities in her cadetship program. Nokwazi successfully completed on her board experiential training and obtained a certificate of competency, and she continues to be an inspiration to her peers. The floor is yours, Nomthetho.
Okay, thank you, Mama. Morning, everyone. So yes, I am Nokwazi Mthethwa, and just to correct something, I started my cadetship in 2018, and then I completed it last year, and then this year I qualified and got my certificate of competency and trust. Okay, so before I continue, so I started at DUT. I did maritime studies, at Durban University of Technology. I started my 2015, and then I went throughout all the phases. I didn't stop on S2, so I continued until I finished S4. And in 2017, I started applying for cadetship. So yeah, while I was on school at that time, there is some tracks, so they will come on schools, take students, you write tests to qualify for a company and so on. But then I have already applied to SAIMI, so that's how I got to be into the SAIMI program. So I applied to SAIMI in 2017, and then as a service provider, they referred me to Marine Crew Services, which is the company or an agency that I ended up with during my internship. So yeah, it is very concerning looking at the maritime industry, because even now it's still continuing. Like, you will find people coming on institutions telling students, please do maritime. There is job opportunity. Not that I'm just going to be negative and so on, but I am now in the maritime industry, and I have seen how things are. But yeah, it is what it is. It's just that not in only the maritime industry, there are also other industries where unemployment rate is very high. So we cannot just say, oh, only in maritime, but yeah, it is. So for me, I got a very blessed opportunity, so I can say, because some of my peers are still at home. Because for me, I was very lucky. Even during the pandemic, I was able to go and see and join. And actually, I completed my cadetship 2020, which was there during COVID, with the pandemic and whatever restrictions were there. But I was able to go to see, and I completed my cadetship. So yeah, as I said, it is very concerning with the unemployed, because now I have my class 3, but now you try and knock on companies, and companies, they don't have spaces. They can't take more people. Even if you get something, you will get like a 4-month contract, and you have to go back home and sit there and do nothing. But as I said, it is a problem in every industry, most of the industries. Even some people that I know who did HRs, who did engineering, some are still at home, because looking at our economy as a whole in South Africa, we're all being affected by it. So yeah, and then in terms of, yeah, as I said, my content is that. So as for me, what I came up as Nicole said, we really need to come up with some development programs which can assist in making sure that the youth that is sitting at home, some are still trying to get into the maritime, get the training. Luckily for me, I have completed my training. Now it's just for me to get a place where I can find some employment and move on. So we really need to have such platforms, and I'm glad that SAIMI is still there, and we can see that SAIMI is still helping, taking people, providing internships day and day as they can. And then also, I was just reading an article by our chairman from SAMSA, which was published like 2 days ago. And I can see that it's not only us as people who are affected in the maritime industry. Even them, they can see that unemployment is very high, and they are trying, I cannot say they're not trying to provide, to come up with platforms, to come up with any development programs where they can assist the youth. But I guess it just takes all of us. I guess all of us, even us who are the people who are affected, we just need to come up with those people who has the power. We come up to them, we sit together, we create some new strategies on how we can assist as well. Because we cannot just sit at home and be like, but I've been knocking on arms. I've been knocking so and so and so, and nothing is happening. But we also need to come up and say, okay, this is what we think as the people who are being affected, as in the industry, this is what we think. How about we do this? Because we cannot just say, we must just fold our hands and then let them do the work. And then at the end of the day, we come saying there's nothing happening in the maritime industry. So yeah, and as for people who still want to join, I wouldn't say I will encourage. I wouldn't say I wouldn't also encourage, because at the end of the day, you never know. We're still also trying to move forward and see what's gonna happen. So yeah, and then lastly, because I was going to be very short, so I can say I've been at sea, and yes, I've been trained to be an navigating officer. So we work mostly with the weather. So we usually say we cannot change the direction of the wind, but what we always do, we adjust our sail, we change our course. So what I can say is, fine, our economy is going this way, but let us not give up. Let us change our approach. Let us strategize more. Let us come with something new, something that will also benefit our youth, my peers who are sitting at home, who has never been to sea, not even 1 month. So yeah, thank you, Malandi. So yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I'm very grateful for the opportunity I got from Saini as well with Marine Crew Services. And now I'm hoping I'll be able to get a company where I can work, and yeah, go forward with my career in the maritime industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nokwazi, for your brief and precise presentation. Thank you very much, Sis. And now let's move to our respondents. We'll start with Cap from AMSOL, and that will be followed by Malcolm, and thereafter we'll take a question and answer session. For now, let's get to you, Wilna Cap. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure, Tanaka, whether you'll be able to share my presentation.
Yes, I'm going to share it now.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you maybe just put it in presentation mode for me?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. What am I doing now? Frozen a bit.
No problem. Maybe I can just start by introducing myself. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vilna Kapp. I'm the crewing manager at AMSOL. And we also have cadets in our program, and I would love to specifically talk about that during the session. Just firstly, for those of you that don't know AMSOL, we're a maritime service provider, South African-based company, and we currently have 19 vessels in our fleet, and we provide training opportunities for youth, specifically cadets in our fleet, and also trainees. Tanaka, maybe we can just move on with the slides if you can't go to presentation mode. Right, like you can see from the pictures there, we do cool things under the water. I don't know if any one of you are following Endurance, the search for Shackleton's wreck. If you've been following social media, you'll see that it's something very exciting that is happening now. And we have several cadets on board the vessel who are very much enjoying the experience. Then if you look at the next slide, just in terms of our value proposition that we offer as a company, if you can just go to the next slide, please. We have our 100% South African owned company with 57% Black South African owned. We have 16% of our employees who are women, and 33% of the company is employee owned. We currently have 560 employees of which 86% is Black South African, 40% youth, and 50% women. We prioritize our transformation for inclusive growth, and in the last 3 years, we have invested over 25 million in skills development, and we have spent 460 million with local suppliers, and 132 million with SMMEs, and 80 million with the majority Black female-owned companies in 2020, and we're very proud of that. If you maybe can go to the next slide, thank you. The markets and the sectors in which we work is mainly focused in the energy sector, port sector, mining and maritime, and we have clients in both the private industry and from the government. It's fine, you can move to the next slide. As AMSOL, we offer bursary programs to students who wish to study in marine engineering and nautical science, and we also offer bursaries for those that want to study climatology or oceanography. If you can maybe just go to the next slide. Thank you very much. There you can see our footprint throughout Africa. 19 vessels owned and operated, 12 of our vessels are South African flagged vessels on the South African Ships Register, and we operate in areas like Namibia, Mozambique, and also in Ghana and throughout South Africa. In the next slide, please. Our bursary program, like I've mentioned, is to unbonded students who wish to study further at the university in the maritime sector, and we usually advertise our bursary program on LinkedIn page when applications are open. Our cadetship program is an apprentice training that fast tracks our youth holding the necessary tertiary qualifications to take up junior officer positions at sea. We provide our cadets with 18 months sea time and with all their developmental training in order for them to get their qualification. The company's program is also a registered learnership program, and we take on several cadets during different times of the year, depending on the vacancies in the fleet. We've just recently had a new intake, and we will welcome 6 cadets to the program in 2 weeks' time. We also have a graduate program that we offer to a young graduate, where we offer internships and trainee opportunities in various fields in human resources, in procurement and the nautical management sector of the company, and also in the engineering and marketing department. The applicants must hold the relevant qualification and will be required to participate in various developmental activities over a 12-month period. So also keep your eye out for adverts that may come out on social media. We are on various platforms where these programs to the youth will be offered. If you can maybe just go to the next slide. There you go. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and also on Twitter. When we do advertisements for bursaries, you will see that on the LinkedIn page. Thank you. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your brief and presentation, Mr. Kapp. Without wasting any time, we'll take now Malcolm Alexander as our second respondent. Malcolm Alexander started Maritime as a kid with his father, and as his father fishing and diving. He has spent 18 years in the Navy, having started as a chef in the submarine. I know there's a line that is included in this one. He says, because of his maths, you could not be or enroll as a, sorry, because of his maths, it was bad, so he could not enroll into other things. So he ended up training as evaluator. This year, he says it's his 17th year at TETA. He believes in sea is for all and holds a huge promise. And of course, he did mention on his biography that there are obstacles, that needs to be overcome before the potential can be realized. And I think that's what was also mentioned by Noxie. Mr. Malcolm, the floor is yours, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. A splendid good morning to everyone. It has been a long time at TITA, but one of the benefits is like the K53 driver's license, I can look back. And in looking back, it helps me look forward because I can see where we've been. As if I was sitting on a ship and I can look back and see the wake. I also know which icebergs we missed, because it's amazing how sometimes on 5-year cycles, I see the same kind of projects coming back. Anyway, I digress. Bear with me. So when we talk maritime, there are different constructs as to what maritime is. And I'm going to let you look through the TITA window. So a lot of people ask me, CETA who? And Knox, you spoke about it as well. There's a lot of opportunities for the youth, and I don't think they always know about it. So one of the opportunities here is that, oh, give me a sec. If you don't know where the opportunities lie, how do you even access them? So that's 21 CETAs, and the blue one is TITA. Every one of those CETAs offers bursaries, learnerships, apprenticeships, etc. Now, the operation Pakisa definition of maritime is a product at sea to a product on a table on a rural village in Limpopo. But within the government construct of the CETAs, maritime is spread over all the CETAs. So banking CETA, Chayeta, there'll be fuels and stuff like that. MERCETA, the building of boats. So within TITA, we've got 8 chambers. And you'll note we've got maritime in blue, but we've also got forwarding and clearing, freight handling. Rail and road freight form part of the operation Pakisa Maritime, but not the SARS DHET definition of maritime. So in the Western Cape, I represent all those roles. So when we talk about maritime, and the reason why I'm giving you this long intro is, if the youth understand the environment they're moving into, actually, if anyone understands the environment they're moving into, you can move much faster. So within maritime TITA, it's defined as we define it as our levy paying enterprises, but also our non-levy paying enterprises, our project implementers, and it's based on SIC codes allocated by SARS. These are SIC codes. The green is Operation Pakisa. The blue is TITA Maritime. So my scope narrows further. There's reason for participation. You know, the devil's in the detail and the devil's in the data. So because I've been here for 17 years, I can look back over 17 years and see how companies are growing or not. This picture in black and white indicates to you 20% of the picture in color. That is the number of companies that participate, which means those who participate define our scarce and critical skills. We fund the scarce and critical skills. We've got 2 out of 8 participating. So we know the right direction, but we don't actually know the exact end goal because there's not enough participation to fully define the end point. When we talk funding for the youth, there's 2 ways you get funding out of a CETA. Mandatory grant is if you've got a company and you comply, we have to pay you. Discretionary grant, we will advertise a window, and on that window you will apply. For the unemployed, there's a bursary window every single June, July that you apply for online. Every November, December, there are discretionary grants where employers, organizations, NGOs, CBOs, non-levy paying, small companies, new companies can all apply. We do not limit it to the transport sector, but we ask for projects in the transport sector. So this is showing you on a mandatory grant, maritime small business from 2005 to 2021. I'm happy to show you that there is a huge increase in participation with TITA. And they are primarily small companies. And I believe small companies have the most potential for employment and growth. This is a profile of all the maritime, all the TITA registered companies. So it starts off, we've got 11,000 companies registered, but 7,000 don't pay levies. And those that don't pay levies are very often deceased estates, shelf companies, etc. But it throws the numbers out. We've got 4,380 companies that pay levies to the CETA. The smallest number of them are small, and the largest, sorry, are the highest number of companies are small, and that we have a very small number of large companies. If you look right at the bottom, you'll see Maritime's got a potential of 657 companies, which is 6% of the total. But you'll also note freight handling, forwarding and clearing, road freight, and rail are also there. So Maritime's much bigger than 6% in Operation Pakisa, but in TITA it's 6%. So we're the 7th highest employer. Overall in the sector, there was a decrease of employees. Gender, still more men than women, 8 in every 10 persons. Black African employers, 73%, make up the majority of the workforce. 12% white, 11% colored, 5% Asian. Age is 35 to 55. It's starting to get old. We had a decrease in disabled people. There's a lot of factors behind that though. Quite often someone doesn't want to be reported as disabled, and then you may not report them. So employment by subsector declined, except for freight handling, rail, road, passenger, and maritime. So interestingly, maritime saw growth in this last period, which is inclusive of COVID and a whole lot of issues. So there's definitely potential. I'm looking at employment distribution. This just to give you an idea of how much employment potential exists in maritime. It depends on the definition. I'm involved in Operation Pakisa, and I think 720 officers and 1,200 ratings a year is a stretch target. I'm not sure what the backlog of cadets is at the moment.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Malcolm, I just want to check something.
Yeah.
Did you share your screen?
Yes. Can you not see my screen?
You can't see at all.
That is awkward because I've been talking for a very long time.
No, we can't see at all.
Okay, let's try again. Okay, give me a sec.
Okay.
Oh, that is so awkward.
There we go.
Oh my word. So
There
I'm
we
not
go.
going to start from the beginning because that would be death by PowerPoint.
Okay, but we can give you, say, 3 minutes just to cover up that time. If you
Sure.
don't-
I just want to get on to where the youth and the women are. So
Okay,
we've done a lot of researches. I'm sorry, I'm not going out of presentation mode. It's into present. I'm going to stay where I am now.
Okay,
So we've been doing research to work out who we're missing and how we're missing. Now, obviously, rural people struggle straight off the back, right? I bring to your attention that despite, 6 years of Operation Pakisa, and even before I joined TITA, the solutions were known, but we haven't seemed to have dealt with them. But there are signs of progress with VUCA Marine, MSC, etc. So when we look at, we're still mostly males. Now we're looking at marginalized, right? So education levels we looked at employment status by gender. We looked at choice of subsector. So maritime's a very low option for women, but it depends on your definition of maritime. When we looked at access barriers for accessing training, lack of funds, I do not know of another country that offers as much opportunities for funding as South Africa under the CETA and the NFAS environment. I really think we will beat us there. When we looked at why they're marginalized, why they can't develop, electricity was the #1 issue. So we've got a lot of things affecting us that aren't even within the sector. So the intermittent electricity and lack of access, the biggest barrier to women coming in, which surprised me. I thought it would be other issues. To the youth, I can tell you Maritime is wide open, and I think Operation Pakisa is starting to pay off dividends. Work your seaters, know your seaters, and work through your seaters to get opportunities. There is literally 21 seaters every year offering multiple opportunities. If we can just get that word out, we'll go forward. Thank you all, and I'm awfully sorry I started sharing so late.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Malcolm. Can you take off your presentation?
I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware.
Okay. Thank you so much for that presentation. We'll now have to entertain a few questions that have come. We've got one on the chat box. Okay, we've got two now. We've got two. The first one is, how do we block the blockages created by the red tapes in the industry in terms of training, employment, entrepreneurship entry? That is one question. And I think Noxie, this question might be directed to you, but anybody who's got the answer can respond to it. And then the second question that we've got from our attendees is, to what extent does CETA collaborate with other stakeholders to ensure maximum access to available opportunities? So far, we've got these two questions that requires your answer, colleagues. Noxie and Malcolm, and all of you guys, you can respond to these questions. The floor is, you can just raise your hand. Sorry?
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you addressed me.
Must I give you the...
I'm sorry, I'm happy to talk. I thought you'd addressed me and then you'd asked for hands. So I just wanted to ask for a repeat of the first question. I didn't quite understand it.
Okay, the question is, how do we unlock the blockage created by the red tape in the maritime industry in terms of training, employment, and entrepreneurship entry? That is the first question.
Okay, I just wanted, so that's the $1 million question right there. So how do we? And I think the Operation Pakisa has identified these things. So when we talk of red tape, we are a highly legislated and regulated country. I'm starting to think that the plethora of regulations are starting to stifle development, and it certainly forms a barrier to incoming investment. My personal opinion is I'm seeing less employment until we turn the country and go forward again. So it is a very real challenge. That's the first question. Sorry, the second one spoke about learnerships and apprenticeships.
Okay, the second question was, to what extent does CETA collaborate with other stakeholders to ensure maximum access to available opportunities?
Okay, that's a long question, long answer. Every CETA consults with its stakeholders. Those stakeholders aren't only levy paying. There are also NGOs, CBOs, HRSC, etc. So there's loads of consultation. And that is what informs every CETA's annual performance plan, which is agreed to with the minister and is presented in Parliament and reported against in Parliament. So there are challenges in that for a lay person to communicate with the CETA, very quickly the language can confuse you. So my key role and this is what I've really learned because I've been there so long, my key role is to translate between you and a SETA or a sector. Because once we both understand one another, we can meet one another's needs. So that's really the only point I can make on that. But there are phenomenal opportunities available every single year, 21 times from various SETAs.
Okay. The last one, Malcolm, if you've got the answer on it, is it still a good idea to encourage learners to take a seagoing career? Is it something is something
Wow.
opportunities at sea?
Wow, that is a phenomenal question. Okay, so what I found over the years is the number of merchant marine cadets has decreased, and so has the number of companies that he's placing. But I have seen the fishing industry has increased, is much more visible with the SETA, and we are funding fishing cadets. So if you're willing to work on a fishing boat, and that's hard living, really, because some of those fishing boats aren't very big, but that sea is very, very big. But if you're willing to work at sea on fishing vessels, you can get relatively easier employed. If you choose merchant marine, it is very difficult to get placed, particularly the numbers we're putting out. And what I'll say to you is, how many ships do we have registered and how many berths do we have? That's actually our target. And we need to get more ships and we'll have more berths. But I would, for a career at sea, at this moment, there are opportunities in fishing, but very reduced opportunities in merchant marine, unless you have a network you can tap into. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks so much for your response. And I think, Noxie, your hand is up. You wanted to respond to some of the questions?
Yes, so you just called me first question, so I'll try my best, but I think Malcolm has actually answered that question very well. How do we reduce the red tape? And it's through that, it's through regulation, and regulation is actually hindering our development as an industry, as a maritime industry. But how do we overcome the red tape? I believe it's through policy change, and I think I mentioned this in my presentation. We can only overcome the red tapes through policy changes. And how do we get to the policy changes? Is through engagements such as these. And this is why it's important to have dialogues such as these. And I really commend Saimi of actually sitting down and saying we are actually trying to address the unemployment in South Africa. I think 2 years back, they hosted the conference on the mismatch between the supply and the demand, and I think there's a book coming out of that. And I think with dialogue such as that and through engagements, we'll be able to see what are the red tapes that are in the industry, and that's where we need to rope in government to say that, you know, with all of these projections, we are unable to move because of A, B, C, and D. We won't know where the red tapes are if we don't have engagement such as this. So, and also in terms of, to answer the last question, I mean, the maritime industry is such a diverse industry. And I think seafarers have been also really focusing on merchant shipping. There's a program that is happening in Cape Town through one of the ports, and trying to get seafarers to get into port operations, focusing on port operations. And also, what we also need is that, yes, we have crewing companies, but they're unable to do as much. They're only able to do as much as they can, as we had from the presentation from AMSOL, is that we don't have enough berths and we don't have enough shipping companies. But then how do we work in ensuring that we have shipping, we have vessels flying the South African flag? How many flags do we have since the inception of Operation Pakisa? What is hindering that? Are we lucrative? What are we doing? Are we advertising ourselves to the global maritime industry? To achieve this, we need to be proactive. And I mean, it's so sad that we recently lost our seat on the IMO. And I think it's through engagements such as those that we're able to develop our maritime industry. And that's why we should always focus on engagements and dialogue, and also lobbying for the maritime industry in South Africa abroad. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Noxie. I think let's take the last question. It is a bit of a comment though, but let's take it anyway. And I think Saimi would have to respond to that one. And others were able to respond as well from one of our respondents. The question is, as a marine engine cadet under the Saimi program, sitting at home with little sea time to qualify for my COC, how do I join the C or the SA Galas to continue with my sea time? Is there anyone who can try to give a response to this one? Okay, Tanaka, can you please respond to it? I see your hand is up.
Yes, with regards to that, I'll just like to advise the person who made the comment to just email Saimi directly, and we'll see how we can guide. But I think Nokwazi can also respond to that.
Okay.
And assist with that because she's part of the program, so she can, I think, expand more.
Okay. Thanks so much. Mm-hmm.
Oh yes. Okay. I've been on an essay Akalas. And yeah, okay. So also, as you said, that Saimi maybe can answer that, because Saimi, they will refer you to a service provider. And also for you to be placed on an essay Akalas, there has to be a trip. And that takes, it means that also SAMSA has to be involved before everything can start proceeding. So I've been on SA Colors. They don't just take you and place you there on SA Colors, because if you go and sit there, you're getting no sit time. So SA Colors needs to have that trip. Usually it's an ICE trip that they do. And then they can place you there. Of course, it will depend on Saimi and also the service provider that they're using, if it's Samtra or Marine Crew Service. So yeah, I guess as you said, it's advisable that that person emails Saimi directly and ask about the progress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, colleagues, for those responses. And I hope that those who are asking the questions, they are comfortable with the answers. Just one comment before we go, and I think it's on the chat box. It's for you, Malcolm. Is it possible for you to send a copy of your slides? And I think Saimi would have those things and then can email it to whoever.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm quite happy to share the slides. Again, I apologize for missing most of them. Okay. But what I will do is, how would you like me to deal with it? Do I just email it to Dr. Tanaka, or?
I think the best thing to do is to email your presentation, and anybody who's got the presentation to email it to Dr. Tanaka, and then whoever the respondent, that is, the participant that is interested on those presentations, they can then request them from Saimi. I think that would be the easiest way to do things.
Great
Tanaka,
stuff.
with that?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you, Malwandi. That's perfect.
Okay, thanks. Okay, now colleagues, let's move with our program. Now we'll get a perspective from the marine manufacturing side. We've got 3 respondents there. We'll start by Queen Dlamini from False Bay. So just a brief bio about Queen. Queen is a level 4 yacht and boat building student at False Bay College. She's currently doing her last year of practicals in Durban. In 2 months' time, she'll be done with her training, and hopeful that she's going to practice what she really passionate about. The floor is yours, Queen Dlamini. Is Queen Dlamini with us?
Hello.
Yes, Queen, the floor is yours, Sisi.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Is it possible for you, sorry, Sisi, is it possible for you to open up your camera and so that we can see you?
Yes, I'm trying to do that.
Okay.
Hi,
Yes.
can everyone see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
But my network is very bad.
Okay, proceed with your presentation, Sisi.
Oh, okay. So as I said before that I'm Queen Dlamini, I'm from Durban. I am a yacht and boat building student doing my level 4 at Falls Bay College. So this is my last year and I'm doing my practicals at Ace Boating here in Durban. So the reason why I was called today is to advise other young people who are still there out there looking for jobs and who are not employed. So basically, I've really liked being in the engineering sector, but then I didn't know much about boat building. So I relocated to Cape Town in 2018 to do mechanical studies. But then when I got there, I got to learn, I got to find out more about boat building. So there was a learnership which was funded by SAEMI, and luckily I was one of the students who was nominated to be part of the bursary. And yeah, so what I can advise for other young students is that there's a lot of opportunities in this sector, because there's a lot of trades that are involved. So if you are maybe, let's say, interested in electrical, there is an electrical department there, there's mechanical, there's fitting, there's carpentry, there's a lot of different types of trade. So as I was saying, I was interested in mechanical, so it's still there in boat building and it's much more interesting. So yeah. So what I want to achieve is to become a qualified boat builder and travel the world, inspire all young women and men out there, because it's not only a trade for men only, it's also for women. So I will also inspire women to take up this trade. It's not so difficult, it's very interesting. So if you are interested in using your hands, maybe I don't know, if you want to think out of the box and you're creative, I think this is a job for you.
Are you done, Sisi?
Yes, I am done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, and another thing else, I'm not done, sorry.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I'm not done. And also there are job opportunities mostly in Cape Town. So I would like to advise the program maybe to have another maybe facility, maybe in KwaZulu-Natal and other provinces, because it's mostly based in Cape Town, because I relocated to Durban to do this boat building this site because I'm originally from Durban, but then there are not much boat building companies. There's a lot of shipbuilding companies. So maybe that can be another thing that you guys can maybe upgrade on.
Okay, thank you so much, Sisi, for your presentation. Yes, quickly now, let's move to Tina, our respondent in this one, Tina Kujwa. So Tina Kujwa, just a brief biography about Tina. Tina completed her qualification at CPUT, and she was a bursary holder of Department of Transport. She has completed her cadet program under National Cadet Program, which is managed by SAEMI. She is now a qualified mechanical marine engineer, and she has worked a number of years in Maersk line ship. She is also, currently, she is the executive manager at South African Boat Builders Export Council. And part of her responsibility is to oversee the operations and activities of boat building sector. The floor is yours now, Queen Kujwa. Sorry, Tina Kujwa.
Thank you so much. Good morning. As I've been introduced, my name is Tina Kujwa. I am currently the executive manager of the South African Boat Builders Export Council. And what the Export Council is, we're registered under the Department of Trade and Industry. Our primary purpose is to promote South African boat building on a global scale and make us a competitive and reputable boat building nation, which we are. We are the largest in the world. And our biggest boat builder is here in Cape Town, as Queen has alluded to, that most of the boat builders are based here in Cape Town. We do have a few, just to answer Queen, in KZN. We have,
Tina?
Yes, can you hear me?
Sorry for interrupting you. I think your network is a bit bad. Is it possible for you to switch off your camera and then speak? Maybe it's going to be.
Is that better?
Tina?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now that's clear.
Okay. So I was just saying, as Queen has alluded to, that most of the boat builders are based in Cape Town, but we do have a few in the KZN in Durban, particularly Royal Cape Catamarans, Boat World, and the rest are also in St. Francis Bay and also in Knysna. We have a few inland ones, but everyone's mostly based here in the Western Cape. So in the industry, the job opportunities that are available, and we're actually experiencing a shortage of people because we're needing more and more people to be involved. We're needing more and more sail makers, laminators, composite makers, upholsterers, plumbers, system fitters, carpenters, naval architects, and also your marine engineers and navigating officers. And a lot of the students or the programs that are available are people study through False Bay College, which is what Queen I see has done. And then they are then placed in various boat yards to do, to practice the practical parts of the theory that they learn at False Bay College. And they're ultimately then employed permanently at the boat yards that we're working at, that they were working at. But we need more people to be involved in these programs. So we found that one of the biggest boat builder that we have here, Robertson and Kane, they have started their own recruiting program, which they started last year in July, where they have now started recruiting. They recruited 60 people to be part of the facility and teach them on the job. So because we're having such a shortage of people who are coming through the system of going through studies and then going into the yards, they've started recruiting their own people to study on the job and learn, and they recruited 60 and they've employed them now full time. So I think what we do struggle with is that thing of not many people know that these opportunities are there for them. So we as SABICS are also working at making sure that we get the word out there that these opportunities are available. They're not the highest paying opportunities, unfortunately, but they are skills that are needed within the industry to help to grow the industry. So we need to work together as we are here now, as SABICS, as SAIMI, as TITA, as Mercita. We all work together to make sure that these opportunities are taken out to the youth for them to know that they can be in the industry. I think I was asked a question on how would I advise someone to navigate the workplace. And I think for me, every workplace is different. We all deal with different people, different personalities, and it's important that you personally keep an open mindset and you're eager to learn and open to learn, and you're not afraid to ask questions where you don't understand. And we are here to assist with anything that you may need. And I think it's important to continue to learn, to find the opportunities, and to have goals as a young person. It's very important to have goals in which for you to personally grow yourself, and in growing yourself, hopefully grow the people, the generation after you. So yeah, I think that is it from me.
Okay, thank you so much, Tina, for your presentation. And if you have anything in writing, like the slides and so on, you can please feel free to forward them to Dr. Tanaka so that they can be distributed. And then now, let's then move to our second respondent on this question, Ukovina from Mesita. He is working there as a client liaison officer. Mr. Chetty, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Dr. Tanaka and Program Coordinator. At the outset, my name is Kovilen Chetty. I'm a Client Liaison Officer for the Mesita, and I'm actually gaining momentum with about plus minus 12 years experience. Like any young individual and youth, I think it's important for us to tap on certain resources and where they want to head in a short-term career path to stabilize it, gain momentum, and advance their career on board. So for that, in my introductory remarks, it is important to note that the Mesitas actually have an opportunity for funding. Now, companies that are actually Mesita inclined, or if you're a project partner like South African International Maritime Institute, can actually ask if you could actually do a
Do you want to share your screen, Mr. Chetty?
No, sorry, I'm actually, apologies on that one. I see, I'm not actually seeing what's happening with this one now at the moment because I cannot really see the whole screen. Okay, so if I just want to continue with regards to that and give you actually one of the dates, that is the 30th of April, 2022. We encourage companies to do a workplace skills plan and an annual training report and apply for the necessary discretionary grants to the Mesita Project Portal tab. Should you require additional support with regard to that, we can probably forward you communique via email to the various CLOs in the various suburbs of the Western Cape hub itself. I want to actually unpack on something very, very important. For artisan development, we're in the decade from 2020 till 2030 to reach an X amount of artisans by that period. So we're in the artisan of the decade, and this is already with COVID-19 disruptions, we're successfully gaining momentum with regards to this. Now, for certain trades, metal time-based trades, the basic entry requirement from the Mesita side is a grade 10. However, we have certain other bodies that work with us, and we have the National Artisan Moderating Body that when you're about to go through a process of an apprenticeship, during the process, one will have to acquire into 4 technical engineering subjects. So if we cite an example of a boilermaker, one would have to do engineering maths, engineering science, latest theory, and latest drawing. Those 4 subjects would a minimum of 80 or 85 weeks. However, the trade test regulations say within 12 months, one can actually qualify. So a company, firstly, that's going to be applying for grants through the MASITA must acknowledge, do they have sufficient scoping of work for 3 to 4 years so that they could actually carry that apprentice through the process of a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and a phase 4 to exit to complete a trade test at an accredited trade test center. Now, companies actually apply for the funding in April and a grant approved by October of this year or November. So they have actually an implementation period to fulfill from 1st of April this current year up until the 31st of March into the new year. With that in mind, a company needs to know that for an apprenticeship, there would be certain qualified mentors whose hands-on the trade. Now, the qualifying body for that is the National Artisan Moderating Body, and they have certain ratios. The guides are available. I can email it to Dr. Tanaka or the program coordinator for that. For current metal time-based trades, the ratio is 1:3. For every 1 artisan, he can coach and mentor 3 apprentices. In the electrical trade, the mentorship is 1:2. Now, there is different vehicles to get qualified through the MASITA. The one is a structured approach of a apprenticeship where you would do constant supervision under guidance of a mentor with a 3 to 4 year process, sign out a logbook and apply the fully completed N2 for a trade test. The second pathway that one can actually qualify as an artisan, if one has actually got 4 years, 3 to 4 years experience through a process of recognition of prior learning. One could actually then state in a signed service letter, they've got the X amount of experience with a minimum grade 9, no N2 required, and then check. But it is a toolkit trade. We have a list of trades, which are toolkit trades that needs to go for pre-assessment at a decentralized trade test center. And then the assessor would actually say they recommend you for further training or they recommend you immediately for a trade test. And hence, funding is also available for recognition of prior learning in terms of that. That's the second way of actually getting qualified. The third way is actually doing a structured program to an accredited training provider where we would have a learner, a training provider, together with the MASITA to administer your contract. And for such a process, one will have to go through formal NQF levels 2, 3, 4, and then an ARPL trade test. No pre-assessment because structured formal training is actually concluded with exit moderations by the ETQA of the MASITA deeming an individual competent. However, as per the South African Qualifications Authority, SAQA, when a learner does the learnership program, it means a certain credits would be acquired to that learnership process, and hence that intervention would need certain notional hours. For example, if a candidate or a learner is doing 120 credits, one will have to go through the motions of 1,200 national hours to cover complete practical work-based competence for that. So in any organization that's doing a learnership, scoping, or the apprenticeship, there must be proper mentors in place, and those mentors will have to appear on our system, and the MRCTA currently is utilizing an administration system called the NSDMS, National Skills Development Module or System. Now, I further want to state that where there is non-mentorships and workplace approvals for an appropriate trade, system may not successfully register a candidate towards a program. So, critical importance on a company side, hands-on mentorship, and the learner can gain practical knowledge and then qualify through that process. Without creating too much expectation of hope, companies normally select and spool in members from internal, or unless they need to do external placements to eradicate unemployment. Now, I want to touch on something a bit different to the process of apprenticeships and learnerships. When we're advancing into certain maritime companies, etc., there's always opportunity for mechanical engineering students for experiential learning, where a person would do practical training P1 and practical training P2 to acquire a national diploma. So they basically, a company will assign a suitably qualified mentor to coach and mentor to sign out a logbook on a case of an experiential learner, and the company can also apply for that type of funding and then pay a learner a specific stipend to conclude the 12 months duration for that person to obtain the national diploma. So further with that, companies don't only work with electrical and mechanical and industrial engineers. A company's pillars are worked on stores, logistics, finance, HR, and other operating divisions. So a company could actually get BCom students that's wanting to advance, probably do an internship, 12 months, also practical work area under supervision with no formal qualification. These are graduates, and MRCTA also consistently fund this to help to eradicate the spool of students coming through from a TVET or a University of Technology for placements. Another important aspect with regards to this, companies may sometimes take on a candidate on a 3 to 6 months trial. As many of us would know, there's no probation anymore. And a good opportunity for a native learner in 2, in 3, or in 4, candidate who's not successfully registered on an apprenticeship field can work for 6 months, and there is a grant that is available for TVET graduate placements. So the TVET will probably finish an N2 for engineering subjects. The company applies for him and hosts him for 6 months, and maybe in the following year, recruit him and indenture him as an apprentice for him to enjoy the journey of the next 3 years. So they've already aligned the introductory, the induction phases of the company, the well-being, etc., the knowledge of basic workshop tools, and then he signed out competent for that 6 months, and then probably could enjoy benefits on a new grant where he could actually be placed on a proper apprenticeship program. These are little insights with regards to it. The other lucrative thing about getting qualified as an artisan, the Quality Council for Trade and Occupations a separate entity, then exit levels or performs a certification for the Red Seal, and then the candidate can become internationally employed and even journey the pathway of actually opening up his own business or latching onto the existing company to see if there's possible employment to go forward with this. So with regards to the maritime also, there's certain other trades. You've covered carpentry, joinery, etc. It's actually shipbuilding, boat building. There's various other ones that go hand in glove with this, because boiler making is actually one of the very critical ones there. You have the welding, also the electrician that can also serve with regards to these type of ones. So for each trade, it is actually a bit different, and the entry requirements, as I mentioned at the outset, remains the same. Over the period of time, it'll actually mean that the candidate must get qualified towards certain N levels. The department in the TVETs has actually rolled out a program where people drop off school at grade 10 due to various reasons and would have actually went to the NCV route, National Vocational Curriculum route, where they did NCV 2, 3, 4. With 2, 3, and 4, 7 subjects, even with maths lit, you can actually do 18 months and you're eligible to do a trade test at an accredited trade test center, provided that you are registered formally as an apprentice. So from the Mercita side, I just want to summarize very, very quickly with regards to it. An opportunity for partnerships through the Mercita project portal. 1, should you need additional funding capacity and guidance for that, CLOs can be contacted to support with the application. 2, the willingness and the eagerness. If you have companies that you've joint ventured and partnered with, we would like to also encourage the thoughts to probably ask them if they can assist with placements of project-funded learners together on indentering their own learners or apprentices. I take the opportunity now to probably pose for a few questions to you, program coordinator. And once again, thank you, Dr. Tanaka, for lovingly inviting me to outline a few of the Mercita concepts with regards to training, apprentices, funding, and it is actually much more than this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keti, for your comprehensive presentation, with the hope that all the students and the participants who are here, they will really take something home with your presentation. But before we go to the question, we're going to take our last speaker to give us something from a legal and ocean governance perspective. And that would be Advocate Lisa Mills from the Maritime Lawyers Association. So she'll give us a bit of information about ocean governance and the legal perspective around the oceans economy. Advocate Lisa, the floor is yours. Advocate Lisa Mills, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just getting myself organized.
Okay, morning.
But can you all hear me and see me okay?
Loud and clear.
Right. So I am currently the Vice President of the Maritime Lawyers Association. You might wonder what we are. We are a voluntary association of mainly lawyers, but not all of us are lawyers. It's a non-profit organization, so members pay an annual fee, and we provide services to the MLA voluntarily without being paid. The fee that we pay to join covers our conferences and administrative costs, etc. So the members comprise advocates, attorneys, judges, as well as people in the industry. We have members who are surveyors, shipbrokers, master mariners, and also people from government. We have representatives of the Department of Transport. We have some employees of SAMHSA and of Transnet in our midst. Importantly, we are all members of the MLA in our personal capacities. So we don't represent our firms or our employers, and we as an association don't employ anyone. What do we do? Well, we promote the study, research, administration, and advancement of the maritime laws of South Africa. We also provide opportunities for the discussion and consideration of matters of interest to the maritime industry. And we collect and circulate statistical and other information and form collections of these which may be of interest to our members. For example, we collect all of the judgments of our Admiralty courts. We have databases where you can access legislation as well as international conventions. At the moment, though, our website is being refurbished, so it's not operational, but it will be up and running again soon. We also cooperate with international associations, such as the Comité Maritime International, in order to promote and consider proposals to unify the maritime laws and practice of different nations. So how do we achieve these objectives? Well, we host a conference every year. We alternate between Durban and Johannesburg, and we're hoping that one of these days we'll have a conference in, we alternate between Durban and Cape Town. We hope to also host one in Johannesburg soon. We invite local and international speakers to present on topics of interest at these conferences. A few examples are, we've had Sabantu Tilai, when he was acting CEO of SAMHSA, present on issues concerning maritime safety. We've had Dumisali Ntuli of the Department of Transport presenting on Operation Pagisa. We've had Julian Clark from a big international law firm, Ince & Co. He's based in London, who presented on cybersecurity in the maritime industry, which is a very topical issue here, given the recent cyber attack on Transnet. We've had surveyors who present on ship casualties. They provide tips on how to investigate them, what evidence to hone in on, how to ensure evidence is obtained and preserved, things to look out for, etc. And those are always fascinating presentations. They're accompanied by photographs of quite dramatic casualties. We've had presentations by Captain Nicholas Sloan. He's a master mariner and a salvage expert, and he presented on his work in raising the Costa Concordia, the cruise liner that famously or notoriously grounded off the coast of Italy. In addition to our annual conferences, we host regular local chapter meetings, the Durban and Cape chapters in particular, where we will invite a speaker to talk on a particular subject, and we follow it up with informal drinks and snacks, which provides a valuable opportunity for our members to network with each other and to meet one another. Those chapter meetings have been hosted via webinar during the COVID pandemic. Obviously, then we don't have drinks and face-to-face meetings, which have been sorely missed, and we hope to resume physical conferences shortly. We also have subcommittees that work through legislation, and they suggest modifications to legislation, whether it's bills that are in the pipeline where government invites stakeholders to make representations, or whether it's new legislation that's being proposed. We are also working on a new arbitration platform for maritime arbitrations, and the aim is to expedite the resolution of maritime disputes, which are usually urgent, and the court system is not always able to cope with several urgent matters. There's much, much more that we do as an organization. Obviously, transformation is one of our principal objectives at present, and we've come a long way. When I joined the MLA 20 years ago, it was dominated by white males. We've seen it transform over the years. At the moment, I'm the vice president, and our president is a Black female. We now have a wonderful racial mix among our members, and we have many, many women now in the maritime law industry, which is wonderful. We have achieved a transformation through various initiatives. We offer a bursary. We have the Stephen Wallace Maritime Bursary Trust, which is a bursary for postgraduate study in maritime law, whether it be the master's or doctorate. This covers tuition and residence costs. It's funded solely through donations from MLA members and through fundraising activities conducted by the MLA. It's very competitive, this bursary. We generally are only able to afford one per year, and sometimes not even each year, depending on how many donations we've received. The cost of university is high, particularly when one adds the cost of residence fees. So what do we look for in candidates? Obviously, academic excellence is important. Candidates from previously disadvantaged backgrounds are given preference, and they must have a keen interest in maritime law and want to practice maritime law in South Africa. There are some international internships that are also available, particularly for previously disadvantaged individuals. The idea is to uplift certain communities and encourage transformation of the sector. At the moment, we're working with Ince & Co, the international law firm, which has offices in London, New York, Shanghai, and all over the world. They are offering a 6-month internship to a South African candidate at any of their foreign offices, and they will not pay a salary, but a stipend will be paid to cover living expenses. So that's an exciting opportunity. Unfortunately, it's already closed, and the committee is currently going through the applications and shortlisting candidates. Lastly, what advice can I give to people wishing to become maritime lawyers? Again, remember, I'm from the MLA, so my focus is on maritime law. At the moment, it's not easy to get jobs in maritime law. It is oversubscribed. We have more applicants than jobs, unfortunately. And generally, the applicants are of the highest caliber, so it's very competitive. So what will give you the advantage if you're seeking a job as a maritime lawyer? Firstly, postgraduate studies, excuse me. Postgraduate study is very important, whether it just be the postgraduate diploma in maritime law or the master's course or a doctorate or even the chartered shipbrokers course. That will certainly give you the edge. Experience is important, but it's easier said than done because obviously you need to get your foot in the door first. I suggest that aspirant maritime lawyers apply for internships in law firms while they're studying. You can do this during your varsity holidays. The overseas internships are valuable because you gain international experience, which is very beneficial in the maritime sector, and it does make you a more attractive candidate when you're seeking employment, particularly if you proved yourself in that firm's foreign office, because a lot of our work in the maritime sector here emanates from law firms abroad that are seeking to, for example, arrest ships in order to secure maritime claims. In addition to the overseas internship, there are many local firms that offer internships. Now, I must emphasize that the MLA itself does not administer these internships generally, unless we're asked to, which hasn't happened in recent years. The firms themselves will generally have to be approached to see whether any internships are available. The easiest way to find out which are the dominant firms in the maritime sector are to conduct an internet search. And in fact, you'll find those searches of much interest because the firms often publish articles on various topics in the maritime sector, not all legal topics. So have a look and you'll see the details of the people who are involved and the firms who are involved, and you can then make contact with them and perhaps send a CV and see whether there are any internships available for the holidays, particularly the longer holidays, December and July. Obviously, it's not a paying job, you're a volunteer, and the most important part is that you learn while on the job and that you prove yourself to a potential prospective employer. It also looks good on your CV if you have worked as an intern in the shipping department of a well-known firm. These two are not easy to get. The firms will look for academic excellence. They'll look for particular education in maritime law, whether you're an LLM student or simply an LLB student that might have chosen as one of your electives maritime law. It's useful to join platforms such as LinkedIn. Not only will you see some interesting maritime discourse on an international level, people often post interesting articles, but you can also comment on those articles, invite people to join with you in the network, and use the platform to promote yourself as well by posting articles of interest. For example, if you are an LLM student and you are researching a particular topic. So that's all the advice that I can give really from the perspective of a maritime lawyer and from the MLA's perspective. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask me?
Thank you so much, Advocate Lisa. We do have questions. So far, we've got 3. Of course, you'll be one of the people who respond to the questions. But let's start with the first question. The first question is, what do you think should be done to optimally increase awareness in the maritime careers? That's the first question.
To increase what in maritime careers? I'm sorry, I battled to hear that.
To increase awareness in maritime careers, what should be done?
That's a difficult question to answer. Education is vital and experience is vital. You know, there's only so much work available in maritime law. I think that if we create a successful arbitration platform, it will attract more work. A lot of the maritime disputes, unfortunately, are resolved abroad. We all know about the casualties such as the MV Smart, who broke her back in Richards Bay when she grounded. I think that the vessel was carrying coal. And unfortunately, although some of the interlocutory hearings are playing out here with South African lawyers involved, the real meaty dispute is being determined in London with foreign lawyers. And similarly, the casualty where the MV Julian collided with one of the bulk loaders at the coal terminal, that too is largely being dealt with in London. We do believe that if we can create a successful arbitration platform within South Africa, those big disputes, we hope, will take place here, which will involve large teams of South African lawyers and also panels of South African arbitrators, as well as South African experts. So we would like to see that arbitration initiative being supported in the future.
Thanks, Advocate. We've got also another question. They're not mainly directed to you, right? Any of our panels can then respond to these questions. But the second question is, are there any available opportunities for people who study maritime from an economic and political viewpoint? If so, how can one be exposed to these opportunities? This is not only directed to you, Advocate Lisa.
I'm suspecting it's not directed to me at all, because obviously I can only answer from a lawyer and a legal perspective. Yes.
Yeah, Chetty and others who are here, they can respond to this question. And perhaps Tanaka as well from Saimi.
Chairperson, can you just unpack that question again for us, please?
The question is, are there any available opportunities for people who studied maritime from an economic and political viewpoint? If so, how can one be exposed to these opportunities? So in essence, the question says, are there any career opportunities within the maritime industry for people who are focusing on economics and also from politics? And if so, how can one then get exposed to those opportunities?
Okay, so if I may just tap onto some of our resources from a funding point of view, the MERSITA, as a project perspective to this initiative, maybe unpack and do some research with regards to that, and maybe put it through as a proposal in terms of a small micro enterprise organization of how you would actually want to go forward with that and create additional advancement for opportunity to get some type of employment, etc. So maybe we're needing to do a one-on-one with you for that at a stage on your availability before the 30th of April this year, please. So if you can probably just contact me and let's see through our MERSITA projects implementation and management team of what are the support we can actually align it to at the discretion of our MERSITA accounting authority. Thank you.
Mr. Chetty, for your response. I hope, Tandega, you have heard that response, and you may ask for contacts and then talk to him directly on the side. But this one, the last one, I think it's just a bit of a comment. It's directed to MERSITA. I think this one. The SITA seems to operate in silos over the years due to the significant minimal collaboration with the main stakeholders, in particular, national departments wherein employment is their role core mandate. Do you care to, Mr. Chetty, to respond to this comment? And also, before you do that, there is a follow-up question to that. The question is there anyhow SITAs can make learners to easily access opportunities without being sent service providers, as the current process has proved to become more complicated?
Thank you very much. So let me just unpack one of the stuff, and I'm hoping that, you know, my colleague advocate Lisa Mills will probably guide me through the process and not have me arrested immediately. Ma'am, I'm looking at your guidance on this. Each company is encouraged to do a workplace skills plan and an annual training report. Now, I just want to rewind a little bit on how funding becomes available so that the students don't feel that, you know what, they have to go through a point and exit there. At the discretion of the MERSITA Accounting Authority, funds are dispersed to companies. Companies can only get in according to the grant guidelines that are actually approved by the Department of Higher Education and Training. So there is no stumbling block with regards to that. And we are mandated through Comrade Bladen Zamande and his team to continue with skills development. Let me just cite an example. If a company is actually paying levies to a value of R1 million to SARS, so they 1% of the total payroll on the employment, and that is R1 million. As a SITA, according to our grant guidelines, we may disperse a discretionary grant to a value of 49.5%. Also depending on the history of that organization. So in that case, plus minus 500,000 rands towards training of their staff, or if it is going to be indentering unemployed people as a graduate to get onto it and enjoy the race going forward with the skilled support. In a sense that a learner says that it is cumbersome, it is in understanding that when a skills initiative is done, there are certain administration rules and there's various parties to a skills registration process. It is a MERSITA as the administrating body, a company as a lead employer, and an accredited provider as a training provider, together with the learner, that a document is actually then signed and entered into agreement for the duration of a program. So the process is actually normally advocated to the MERSITA system, and it is on our notices on a yearly basis for viewing by the public on various notifications on when and certain cutoff dates. I trust that I've actually discussed the points according to how you would have actually wanted them. Should you want additional feedback or further points, we can unpack. Number one, immediately I can send you the MERSITA signed grant guidelines, the various grant values, etc., and how does grant and funding become available. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chet, for response. And I think there are also others who are interested to get in contact with you with regards to this question that was asked by Tandega. Now we've got also, I saw the hand of Malcolm, and I think because it's also from a Tita, these questions can also be responded to by him. So I saw his hand. I thought that you would want to respond to some of these questions. Mr. Malcolm? Yes.
Thank you so much. The one I wanted to respond on was to do with why we silos and don't communicate with government. All of our plans are developed from government plans in consultation with government. So I just put that out there. Where it does become very silo issues, for someone who doesn't understand CETAs, where do they even start? Like, where do you start? That I acknowledge. Now, I know as a CETA, all CETAs do it. We've developed career guides. We go on career marketing events. We share the career guides, and we also adopted 60 schools that are in rural areas and struggling. So I'd say we're doing a fair amount, but again, it's a drop in the ocean. I mean, 60 schools out of how many schools? But we are aiming at rural, under-resourced schools because they're the ones who need the most help. So that's that section. In terms of the complexities of application and the cumbersomeness, I agree with that. But I would then say, please guide us on a simpler system that is fair, transparent, and is immune to corruption. The level of corruption in this country means we have to have multiple safety checks all the way through in a process. It's something we're really, really struggling with. So TITA, there's 2 windows. In June, July, there's about 1,000 bursaries that are available to unemployed people. I'm the reason that unemployed person can apply direct to TITA. Previously, we did it through employers, but that didn't work too well for the unemployed because your personal network determines what you know largely when you're young. So I opened it right up. So all I can say is have a look at our website once a month. There are a host of opportunities all the way through the year. And again, we're just one of 21 CETAs. I don't think you could even design a website that would have all the CETA info in. And my final point is, if all CETAs used a single system, all of our lives would be a hell of a lot easier, but we don't.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Malcolm, and all of you for your response to these questions. And I think Tandega and others were asking for these questions to be clarified. And of course, if they still need more information, they will do a follow-up with all of these colleagues who said that they are available to respond to those questions. And I think that's important for all of you guys, Mr. Chetty, to share your contacts with them. You can share them even on the chat box for them to get them. Alternatively, they will get them from Athima. I'm sorry, Dr. Tanaka from SAIMI. Colleagues, we are at the end of our session for this webinar today, which is hosted, of course, by SAIMI. But one thing that I want to say, just a few points that I've taken note of in this webinar, is that there are still questions around transformation, which almost all the stakeholders spoke about, which talks to the industry being male-dominated, white in the main, and there's still little representation of women and youth in that regard. So I think that's one point that I take from this presentation. And I think this was a point that was touched by our guest speaker, Unoksi. And I think you advocate, Lisa also spoke about it. And also the AMSOL also spoke about this question. So I think it's important to take note of that. But the second aspect that I take note of, which was raised as well, is the question of the political will around the issue of the red tapes, because it's more on the red tapes which was raised. And I think that's one important question that we need to talk to. And Knox made an emphasis on this question, that we need to be intentional in addressing the question of the red tape so that everybody can get accommodated in the industry. So that talks to the policies to ensure that we are able to accommodate everyone else. And also this part of the question, it also talks to the question of the unemployment, because part of what was raised is the issue of skills mismatch, which is also in relation to the supply and demand of the skills and what the institutions are providing versus what the industry wants in terms of the skills and the qualification in that regard. So I think that's an important part that we need to focus on. And I'm glad that SAIMI, as a host of this session, is also here, because it talks to part of their mandate of ensuring that skills development and capacity building. But also the aspect about which was raised sharply, not by only Noxi, but also Nokwazi spoke about it. The issue of the industry being sold as a lucrative industry, which is good, but also on the part of recruiting young people to join the industry, in that there will be jobs and so on. In reality, as it has been discussed here and presented, that there are still serious challenges with regards to the employment. Some people are sitting at home with qualifications or certificate degrees within the maritime industry. They're still struggling to find employment, even though that the industry has been advertised as being lucrative. So I think we need to take note of that point as well. And I'm sure SAIMI, as part of the critical stakeholders within the maritime industry, insofar as skills development is concerned, they will take note of this point. And it's not the first time this matter has been raised. So I think it's important to be taken note of. But also, I like what was said as well by Noxi, that we need not only to focus on the jobs that are being created or getting a job, but we should also use the skills and knowledge that we have to create employment for others. So the part of the entrepreneurship route, which is also important for some within the industry, they can utilize the skills and the knowledge that they've acquired throughout their education process to actually open up their own businesses and create jobs instead of waiting for the jobs to be created. So that's a very important point. But in as much as that is important, it also talks to the issue of the red tapes because even the businesses themselves, if there are no policies that are, of course, focused and determined in ensuring that, in fact, intentional to ensure that the market is open, the industry is open for the small businesses to thrive as well, there's going to be challenges. So in as much as that we look into the growing the industry, we should also look into easing some of the policies, red tapes to ensure the small businesses, particularly from the women that are owned by women, young people and blacks, to find expression in the industry. So I think it's an important point that Noxie also mentioned about it. And of course, there are so many other things that really I can talk about, but the question of network as a last point and the operations in silo mentality. And I think it's an important point that was made as well. One, on the part of the silo mentality, I think the collaboration, it's a word that comes out. Collaboration, partnership, those are important words that came out. And I think there's a need for practicalizing those words in a sense that all the industries, they come together and work together. The institutions of higher learning that provide the skills, the industry, SAIMI and all of that, they need to work together in order to ensure that what is being produced on the other side, it gets received on the other side. So there must be an intention to work around that. So collaboration and partnership are very important words. But the last point to make is the issue of creating networks. So for young people, for them to find expression and get jobs and get to know what is happening where, the question of network is important, is as important as the question of information sharing, because part of creating networks is you being able to actually have an access to more information that may not be accessible if you do not create those networks. So I think it's important as well to take note that the young people who are here and everybody else who are interested in the growth and development of maritime industry and oceans economy at large, the issue of networks, we need to encourage people to create networks so that they get to know about the opportunities in the industry, be it for jobs, be it for training, and be it for businesses. So I think it's an important point to make. One last point is the question, if I just need to emphasize on it, the question that must be emphasized on being intentional. So when we do something, if we're serious about the growth and development of oceans economy, be it from a business, from a skills development and so on, we've got to be intentional. And our intention must be informed by the realities on the ground, that we don't do things for the sake of doing them. We do them because we need to get an impact out of it. And we should not only be focusing on the outcomes, but it must be impact driven. Hence the word intentional is important in this discussion. And I think for me, that's one word that I would take out of this session, that we've got to be intentional in our doings. With that being said, thank you so much, colleagues, for your attendance. And Tanaka would do the formal and proper closing for this session. Thank you so much. Tanaka, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Malwande. On behalf of the South African International Maritime Institute, we just want to thank all the stakeholders that joined for this very important discussion, and also the engagement, which I believe is a good start to a fruitful collaboration and partnership with all the stakeholders. And we are hoping that through this engagement, we're able to leverage some of the critical aspects that you presented, especially from our industry stakeholders and our SETAs as well. With that said, I'm also hoping that the youth that we had on this platform will also continue engaging where you're going in terms of your career, and where possible, you're able to leverage off some of the very important platforms that were discussed today. And I just want to thank you, Malwande, for setting out time and holding the fort on this platform. So we are very grateful for that. And I just want to thank everyone who put in time to organize the event, the people behind the scenes that are managing the platform. We're very grateful and thankful that you were able to assist us in hosting this webinar. We just hope, with COVID the changes in COVID, hopefully we are going towards a more positive change in terms of the strain, we'll be able to have more engagements that we can actually meet. And we also hope that some of the engagements that were mentioned, especially in terms of, I think there's a conference for the Maritime Lawyers Association that Lisa mentioned, that we're also able to become part of that and be able to use such platforms to create mentorship platforms and mentorship connections with people that want to penetrate the space. I think most of the things that were mentioned with regards to women's participation transformation are very invaluable to everyone who attended this platform. And I just want to thank all the guests that did attend for coming in and sharing their opinions and also providing questions that provide that critical, conversation and interrogates the very important things that we need to look at as industry, as a sector, and how we can navigate so that we come up on top in terms of providing sustainable employment for the future of South Africa. With that said, thank you once again. I just want to wish everyone a great day and a great year. I think it's a good start of the year. We'll still have more activities from SAIMI geared towards empowering and creating awareness and advocating for the maritime sector. So please look out on our different websites. We've got 2 websites. We've got particularly the one dedicated to youth development. It's called the Dive In website. So please look out for events, opportunities, as well as even bursaries that we post there. Please take a look at our website often as well for the South African International Maritime Institute, as well as our social media pages. We often try to share as much information as we can. And that is one way. I think one person mentioned that not having information is one of the barriers in terms of finding opportunities in employment. So I just want to drive people towards those platforms and all the other platforms that the stakeholders of this platform did mention. And with that, colleagues, have a good afternoon. And thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanaka.
Thank you, Tanaka.
Thank you.